Hey guys, welcome to the fourth and final installment in our series on building looks. If you haven't had a chance to check out the other videos in this series yet, I definitely encourage you to do that first, because in this video, I'm going to assume you've got a good grasp on all those prior concepts and jump right into capping our look off with one of the most misunderstood techniques in grading, the color wash. Let's get into it. So I've got a nice look built out here in my timeline stack. I've got my sort of preferential color palette that we built out in our last video, and then our split toning, and finally the baseline contrast curve lying underneath all that stuff. But I want to take this a little bit further, and I want to demonstrate how I like to go about one of the bolder looks that we can do in grading that is sometimes exactly where we want to go, and that's the color wash look. What do I mean when I talk about a color wash? I can't think of a better example in recent memory than this frame from Blade Runner 2049. It's got this incredibly strong monochromatic wash or push to it of this, sort of like orange and red, but it doesn't feel imposed in the grade. It doesn't feel like this was somebody's hot idea in post-production after the fact. It really feels organic and in camera. And a big part of the reason for that is that it is organic and in camera. This was planned to look this way, and it wasn't an 11th hour Hail Mary that was decided in the color suite. It really was designed to look this way, and then certainly enhanced in the grade. But I don't happen to have that fortune here with the shot that I'm working on today, or the shots plural that I'm working on today, but I want to show you guys some of the concepts and techniques that I use to try to get a similar effect, where I'm not only imparting a color wash, but doing so in a way that feels organic and in camera and not like something that I slapped on at the last minute. So let's build a new node upstream of the look we've done thus far. We're going to do everything kind of piggybacking on top of the look that we've already built, because I think it's all going to work really well for this color wash that we're going to do today. And let me just audition the simplest possible version of this, the version that I remember trying for years when I first started grading, that I'm sure a lot of you have also tried as well. I'm just going to grab for my wheels and go nuts. I want to go for a warm look, so I'm just going to push up into my warm quadrant quite liberally, like so. So that's, if I look at my vector scope and I wipe to my badass Blade Runner frame, that's certainly moving me closer into the signal that I see on that frame. But if I just look at this visually, I'm not a very big fan. Like, that feels awfully extreme, and the extremity isn't even what bothers me, because this also feels extreme, but it feels imposed. It feels like some colorist's bright idea. It doesn't feel like something that's organic to the frame. It doesn't feel like it's something organic to what was shot. So we got to find a better way. I want to tackle this in a way that feels more innate of the original camera material. So I'm going to delete this node, and I'm going to create a brand new node, and we're going to skin it a slightly different way. What I want to try this time is I want to change my concept a little bit. So rather than thinking about kind of taking this bucket of orange and dumping it over the frame like I just did, I want to think about re-rating my camera for a different temperature of light, basically mismatching the rating of the camera with the temperature of the light that it received. So I want to effectively rate my camera for a much cooler temperature of light than actually was being used in this frame. And the way I'm going to do that is with my colloid tool called Kelvin, which was designed for this exact purpose. So I'm going to go to my colloid presets, and I'm going to drop Kelvin on here. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with my RGB wheels, but I'm going to do it with my Kelvin slider. And I'm going to go nuts. I'm going to go really strong and just push, push, push way up into my upper left quadrant by pushing my color temperature up, like so. So this is already a lot closer than I was before. It feels more organic and integrated to the frame, but there's some work that needs to be done in order for this to really sell for me. The first thing that I want to deal with is the fact that when I make a big, strong, bold push like this, certain colors are going to be closer to the outer edge of where I'm going than others, obviously. There's colors in here that are warmer than others, that are more saturated than others. So what happens is, in this race to get everything kind of shoved up into this quadrant, there are some colors that really fly to the outer edge really fast, and the inner colors don't quite have a chance to catch up. So I want to play with reining in those outer saturations even more than I already have, because I'm already working in a color managed environment. So no matter how hard I drive this, there's already kind of an upper limit on my saturations past which I'm not going to be able to go without coming out from underneath my color management pipeline. But even within that, I want to rein in that kind of upper limit of saturation even further so that things take on a bit more of a uniform wash. They have less of a range of saturations. Basically, I want to reduce the dynamic range of my saturation curve. So the tool I'm going to use to do that is my sat versus sat. I'm going to create a new node downstream of this one. And I'm going to go to my curves, dig out my sat versus sat, and I'm going to start playing with reducing the saturation of the most saturated colors. If I want to kind of read this graph, I'm moving left to right from low saturations to high saturations on my input, and from bottom to top, I'm also moving from low saturations to high saturations in terms of my output. So what I want to do is target my upper saturations in my source and decrease those saturations more than I'm decreasing the saturations of the lower saturated input values. So the way I'm going to do that is pick a control point about halfway through here. If I was working in the range that these curves are expecting, I could draw this control point all the way to the right. But if you notice, my histogram doesn't run even close all the way through this signal, because these curves, like all curves in Resolve, are really set up for a gamma model. They're really set up to expect a gamma signal, and my signal is log, so it occupies a narrower range, and so I really need to pay attention to where my histogram is actually plotting and not just assume that 1 over here or 100 is actually where my image tops out, because it happens to top out far sooner than that. It's closer to around 50 here where I've drawn this control point. So I've got that control point. I'm going to draw one other, and I'm going to drop this down like so. And just to keep things clean, I'm going to drop my rightmost control point down as well, because there's no reason for that one to climb back up. And now I just want to start to toy with the way that this roll-off happens. This is a saturation roll-off similar to a loom roll-off, but it's happening with saturation instead. And let's see how we're doing thus far. I'm not having a huge effect yet, so I'm going to go even further with rolling off my saturations. Like I said, this is a big part of the wash look for me, is having a quite compressed range of saturations, so that even within this quadrant, the distance between lowest and highest saturation gets shortened somewhat. So I think I'm getting onto a good track now. Can you see how these deeper saturations up here are starting to now be pulled back and things are in a bit more of a washy state? That is more or less what I'm looking for. I want to rein things into a bit more of a washy place. And the last thing that I want to do now, just kind of as a gut call, I'm looking at this now and it feels like there's a little too much luma, a little too much contrast for the washiness of this color palette that I've created. So I'm just going to call an audible here and create a new node upstream of my Kelvin node, go back to colloid and break out another one of my favorite tools from the kit, which is exposure. And it's just going to allow me to create, again, a very camera-like exposure adjustment to this image. And I'm going to try something wild. I'm going to go like a full stop under just to see what that feels like. Maybe that's a hair far, maybe I do 3/4 of a stop, but something like that is on the right track for me. And if I now look at the net of this stack that I've built, I feel like I'm starting to really succeed at creating this wash that's very bold, it's very strong, but it doesn't feel like it was imposed by me, the colorist, after the fact. It feels like this could be innate of camera. It feels more organic and the look feels more fused with the image. So those are some thoughts and ideas for you on the color wash, which to me is one of the coolest looks that you can do in grading. It's not for every project, but when it comes up, you want to be able to really do it well and elegantly. And it's one that I see a lot of people attempt and most of us don't quite get right, because it's difficult to figure out how to rein these things in. And a lot of it just comes back to sort of conceptualizing it in the right way and shifting your thinking, as I said, from this more kind of bucket of paint approach to how would you achieve this in camera on the day? And it would really start with re-rating your sensor for a different temperature of light, intentionally mismatching the color temperature sensitivity of the camera with the color temperature of the light that's actually being used to illuminate the scene. And just to round it out, let's try doing the exact opposite. We've done our big warm push. Let's try doing a big cool push now and see how that holds up. I still think that's really nice. I might even want to go further with my exposure drop here. Again, just kind of making a gut call. I'm going to try like 1 1/4 stops under now. And that just feels nice to me. It feels organic, feels like a frame that I'm interested in watching. And this look really ripples out nicely across our other images. This wash really plays across the entirety of the footage. It feels consistent, and it doesn't feel like it was imposed by a colorist at the last minute. I hope you've enjoyed going through this process of building a look as much as I have. Today's hardware and software give us more power than ever to articulate our unique vision for our projects, but this also means that it's on us to craft great looking images. Now, if you're a busy content creator or independent filmmaker or post-professional, you may not always have time to build a look from scratch like we've been doing in this series. For these situations, I've developed Colloid, a set of DaVinci Resolve plugins which allows you to quickly develop a custom filmic look without the hit or miss black box quality of a LUT. Everything is fully tunable and fully under your control. If you'd like to learn more or grab a free 24-hour trial of the product, you can check out the link above, which I'm also going to leave down below in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.